8 oak trees in its making. 18 metres tall, weighing 22 tons. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest, most powerful siege engines in the world. For Warwick Castle, Trebuchet! By decree of Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, in the year of our Lord 1471, the army has been called to arms, and the present levy is called to assemble. For Edward of York has marched down London. He has taken the city and declared himself King of England. Now, by the name of God, we march to take back the capital. The House of Warwick rides with the House of Lancaster to defeat Edward and restore the true King, Henry VI, to the throne. Our army musters in Coventry, where thousands upon thousands of archers have joined our cause, and hundreds of noble knights are willing to do battle for the true King of England. Our plan is to besiege the walls of London, invade the city, and take the throne back from Edward. For this, we will need siege machines, we will need cannon, but most of all, we will need that. So, tomorrow we fight, so today, we drill! Indeed, this is one of the biggest, most powerful siege engines in the world. Her name is Ursa, the Bear. She is built mainly from good old English oak, and the throwing arm forged from 2 pieces of ash. Not only is she one of the biggest, most powerful siege engines in the world, she is state-of-the-art in trebuchet design. It's those wheels on the side of her. Those wheels mean that we use manpower to load her. No longer do we need to use the traditional method of loading a trebuchet, which is using horses or oxen to tow down the throwing arm. Now the problem with this method is you tie up sections of your men to look after those animals. Also, sieges tend to last weeks or months, and your enemy could cut off your supply trail. So then you have no food, you will end up eating the horses and oxen, leaving you with no method to load your trebuchet. So somebody somewhere thought of a genius plan. Let's borrow the technology from the medieval crane. The same cranes that have built structures across medieval Europe. Churches, abbeys, cathedrals, city walls, and castles like our very own at Warwick. So they've taken the wheels from the cranes and put them inside our war machines. So this also means the technology that was once used to build can now be used to destroy. So those 2 wheels are linked with a central axle. A rope is tied to the end of the throwing arm and led down to the A-frame at the back of the machine. It is then passed through a pulley. The rope is then connected to that central axle. Now the person in charge of the machine is the trebuchet master. With her is a crew of soldiers. 4 soldiers, 2 to climb inside each wheel, and their job is simple: to walk inside those giant wheels. And they must walk in that direction. Now their walking action turns the giant wheels, turns the axle, which winds the rope around the axle, so this in turn pulls down the throwing arm and lifts that box you can see slowly rising in the centre. That box is the counterweight, the ballast, the source of our energy for our siege machine. And that counterweight box weighs 1 ton, empty. What we have done is placed a further 4.5 tons of rocks and rubble inside that box. So you are currently witnessing 4 people lifting a total weight of 5.5 tons. So let's cheer them on! It is indeed incredibly comfortable inside those wheels. Being a trebuchet winder is regarded as one of the worst jobs in history. Now this is why. When you're walking that way, you not only have to walk the weight of the wheel, which weighs over a ton, you have to lift up 5.5 tons of ballast. So this is not a walk in the park. It's a very tough job because you not only have to walk, you must lift. You must climb up those wheels, stride high, keep a straight back, and make sure you don't hit your head on that central axle. So this is a crucial part of the wind where the trebuchet master is reaching for a metal ring. This forms part of the trigger. Those winders also are subject to sickness inside those wheels. Now as those wheels rotate, the outer slats will cause a flickering of light, flashing in your eyes. This does 2 things. It disorientates. So, you can get very dizzy, stumble from side to side, knock out a fellow winder, which puts the machine out of action. We cannot have that during war. But also, it brings on sickness. Now, trebuchet sickness, what we call it, as motion sickness. So, as the wheels rotate, the outer slats will cause that flicker of light, and also you can throw up inside the wheel. Now, it's not a good idea to throw up in an environment where the floor becomes the ceiling over and over and over again. It's going to go all over the place, all over your clothes, all in your hair. You might swallow some of it, but more importantly, you could slip over. We cannot have that. If we have sick covering the entire inside of the machine, it puts the wheels out of action for a long time, so they have to be cleaned. So now, as you can see, the job of the winders is not over yet, and they are still struggling to get those wheels around. We have one here, extremely. We seem to have a problem with one of the wheels. What's happening? The wheels have stopped. I think somebody's suffering with a bit of trebuchet sickness here. Out she comes. The trebuchet master's going to sort her out. Maybe give her a drink. There we go. It seems brutal, but it has to be. Unfortunately for that winder has endangered the entire crew. If we fail during a siege against London, this machine goes down, one of our biggest, then we fail our mission, and my head can end up on a spike on London Bridge. So, it's back inside the wheels to walk the other way. First of all, the arm is down and it's locked down with a trigger. The trigger is very simple, a metal hook attached to the A-frame at the back. Its counterpart was that loop the trebuchet master was reaching for. The arm is brought down in line with the A-frame and the hook is passed through the loop. It's as simple as that. That is our release mechanism, our trigger. Also, two safety implements have been placed. First of all, a metal pin goes underneath the hook to lock it into position, and then a chain led from the base of the trebuchet is then hooked to the end of the arm. These two safety devices ensure we do not shoot this machine before we are ready, because it's back inside the wheels to walk the other way. This time there's only one winder needed in each wheel. The reason why they have to get back inside the wheels is because of the rope used to pull down the throwing arm and lift up the counterweight. That rope has now wrapped itself around the central axle. So if the trebuchet master pulled the trigger now, then Ursa will be destroyed. The axle torn from the heart of the machine, thrown out of the back, and decapitating our trebuchet master in the process. So the winders now have the important job of walking off the slack, taking that rope from the axle, making sure that Ursa has a free flying arm. So, they also have to be very careful not to take off all of the rope. We still need a small portion of rope remaining, so when we've shut her, we can start the whole winding and loading process once again. When it comes to war, we must be shooting this machine at least once every 6 minutes, which is quite slow when compared to that of the cannon. Now with cannons, we take them to the siege, they're perfect. They can create a breach in a city wall. But once that breach is met, you then have to send in soldiers. First of all, to protect that breach against possible reinforcements, but also to fight inside the city, through the streets and in the buildings. Now the problem with medieval, close quarter, urban warfare, you have to be prepared to lose a lot of your force. Perhaps half of your soldiers won't survive. Ursa gives us another option, because not only with trebuchets can we launch a projectile at city walls, but we can launch them over the walls, make life inside the city for the inhabitants a living hell. So what can we throw from our trebuchet? We can throw a variety of projectiles. Rocks, fire, people, dead animals, anything. A dead animal is a good choice if you want to fight a dirty war. So throw in rotting carcasses of horses or cows. Perfect. We're trying to hit their water supply, their wells. If we can contaminate their water, then they have to surrender and sling open those doors and welcome us in. But also psychological warfare. Even the mere construction of our trebuchet can cause the city to surrender themselves. But the one thing medieval man was most frightened of was fire. And most of the internal structures of a medieval city will be made of wood and thatch. So we launch fireballs from our trebuchet. And if we launch fireball after fireball, create a raging inferno within that city, well then the enemy simply has a choice. They surrender or they burn. And we would like to give you an opportunity to see what this looks like. So this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we will be launching a fireball! The call goes out for the Trebuchet master, prepare to load. We have an 18-kilo rock wrapped in sacking and has been soaking in lamp oil all afternoon. The command of load! It is hauled into the centre trough of the Trebuchet. Now attached to the ball is a chain. Attached to the chain is a rope. These are led down the centre trough, then the rope is hooked to the pin at the end of the arm. The stone is loaded. We are almost ready for launch. We now have to get the crew out of the way. Our Trebuchet master orders the loader out of sight. Only 2 people remain, the Trebuchet master and the person to light the projectile. After the safety checks are done, it's time to begin the shooting sequence. First of all, the Trebuchet master, remove the chain! Now, pull the pin! Our Trebuchet is now live and ready to launch. The Trebuchet master steps off the machine, takes the trigger rope and orders the lighting of the projectile. And fire! The ball is torched and the flames begin to build in the heart of the machine. Now here is where our Trebuchet master must hold her nerve. If she pulls the trigger too early, the ball goes out and is useless. But if she waits too long, then the whole Trebuchet could be up in flames. So she holds. And she holds. And we launch!
Oh, yo, what?
Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen, the Warwick Castle Trebuchet! Now that is not achieved without a lot of hard work, so please, for your lungs, give the biggest cheer you ever have for the Trebuchet master and the crew!